Today, we're faking it. That is, we are distressing papers to look like they are vintage and old and worn and beautiful. Welcome, I'm Ingrid Carlsen, and I am so glad that you're here with me today. Before we start with our tricks, I wanted to give you a little tip, and that is, I don't know if you know this or not, but you can actually use newsprint or like those doodle pads for kids that have that kind of cheap thin paper, and you can print on those, and they feel more like authentic original documents. I've printed the same design both on this doodle paper as well as copy paper, and I'm going to ask you towards the end of the video if you can tell the difference between the two. The main difference that I notice is that the copy paper is a little bit smoother and the doodle paper or scribble paper has a little bit of texture on it, which is what gives it that lovely vintage feel. We are going to start off with technique number one, and that is going to be we're going to distress the edges. There are two ways that I like to do this. Now, they also sell tools that do this for you, but I'm going to show you how I prefer to do this. And the first way is to use an X-Acto knife. Of course, be very careful with both of these ways. They are sharp tools, but I am going to just lightly run the edge of the X-Acto knife across the edge, and I pick different spots. I don't go all the way across, even though you can, depending on how much distressing you want to add. You could also open up your scissors and use the inside of the scissor blade to get the same effect. I've built this video kind of like a formula, and if you do the 5 basics of the formula, then you are going to get a beautiful, aged, really rich, organic looking paper every single time. And that's whether you are using full sheets of paper or you're using ephemera. It works on any kind of paper that you want to use. And then I'm also going to sprinkle in some additional, that I would say optional choices, maybe to take your vintage printable to the next level. But you can definitely do this just following the 5 steps. Step number 2 is to fold and crease your papers. And again, just like step number 1, you can take this to the max and do as many folds and creases as you want, but you can do very minimal as well. What I would say is, especially if you're just starting out, try different ones. Maybe print 2 different pages, the same page, and try one where you have it more distressed and one less, and then you can start finding what your style is and what you prefer. What I find is that in true life, when you find an antique paper or something that is really old, it's not necessarily crinkled up like you see sometimes. You actually see that it almost has just crinkles in it instead, as if it was handled. And I think that that's what makes it look a little more authentic. The other thing that I think makes it look really authentic is folds, because old documents are usually folded in some way, maybe stuck inside of a notebook, maybe they are inside of a folder, but either way, I think that that really adds authenticity to it. And you can also layer these 5 steps over and over until you get the exact look that you're looking for. Like I'm showing you here, after I did my folds, I went back and did step number 1 again to add a little more distressing. Step number 3 is to lightly sand, and I'm just taking this sanding block and I'm using the edge, which is kind of sharp, and I am just adding some scratches to it. And I'm going to be honest, I have not sanded in a little bit, and when I was doing it, it instantly brought a smile to my face. I forgot how much I love sanding papers. It makes it look so authentic and unique and just worn and tattered. And best of all, I love it because it actually gives the paper a different feel, which feels old. The next method that I'm going to show you is one that I would call optional, and that is to ink. Now, there I think are two camps, people that really love to ink and those who really do not like ink. And I'm wondering, what camp do you sit in, or are you in the middle? I'm kind of somewhere in the middle. A lot of times I don't like using inks because they can feel muddy. So what I like to do is I take these two different inks from the Distress Oxides, and one of them is brushed corduroy, the other is antique linen, and I mix the two. The corduroy color is a little more on the yellow base, as you could see there in the little swatch. And so I start off with that one, and then to add a little extra depth, then I go in with the vintage photo. This can still feel a little muddy and I don't know, maybe dirty feeling, but it definitely adds like a beautiful texture. And the truth is that when papers have been stashed away for a long time, they do start to collect dust and to become discolored. And so it really feels like your paper is touched and used, and maybe it was really loved. The second option that I'm giving you here is adding some paint splatters kind of. So I'm taking this brush that I got in the Dollar Tree home department, and I cut the bristles so that they are very jaggedy because I wanted something to give me really scratchy lines. I'm going to mix a color that kind of looks like the foxing that you would find in old books, and I'm just going to dab on the color almost like a stipple. And on some of them, I even rubbed off the color so that it kind of gave a more blended effect. And I think this is a really beautiful touch. It's simple and it really fades into the papers and it makes it look very original. I think of all the steps, this might be my favorite, and that is adding holes. I'm going to start off by adding holes that imitate a staple being in on the corner of one of my pages, and I love the look of this. A lot of old documents would probably have staples that have fallen out, and so I think that this is a really sweet way to add an element that really doesn't just pop out at you. It's kind of subtle and sweet, and I love that. But I'm going to show you other holes that I'm going to make throughout the papers and how wonderful that looks. The funny part about this is, as I was doing this, I was thinking if you had an important paper that you were trying to preserve and it got holes in it, you would be devastated by it, possibly. In this case, we want to mimic that look. We want it to look like it was loved and it has seen stuff. It has a story to tell. And this is exactly what we're doing. We're building a story, each hole, each distress mark at a time, and we are just making this full bodied. Step number 5 is to use some tape. In this case, I'm using some faux antique tape that I've made. And if you haven't caught that video, I'll have it linked down below. I actually have several different techniques that I have for making a aged tape like this that you might be interested in. And It's kind of funny because we just made holes, and on some of the holes I did a rip like this one, and we're going to faux mend it. We're going to act like this is something that was ripped years ago and then a piece of tape was added to it. It's been years since that happened, and now the tape has faded. Another little tip that I would give you is once you have put down your tape, roll one or several of the edges over, because it's going to give it that lived feel, that it's not going to be completely stuck down all in unison. It's going to give it a little bit more character and whimsy. If you want another really fun optional method to distressing your papers, I would say this one is really great, and that is adding water splatters. We've actually done a project like this on Patreon where we distress some photos using just water, and it really will give you some absolutely gorgeous techniques or results, especially if you're using an inkjet printer. If you're using a laser printer, then it's not going to interact with the ink in the same way, because that uses a toner instead of a wet ink. And so I'm not really sure what happens. I don't think anything would happen, but you might be able to use something like alcohol. But when you see it here, you're going to see that it starts separating the color from the paper, and it's so beautiful. And then you can take your finger, like I'm doing here, and rub some of the paper off, and it rolls, and it's so beautiful. My last optional tip that I would give is doing some coffee. But instead of doing coffee dyeing like we've done before, I'm going to actually place a little bit of instant coffee on my desk here, and I'm going to add some water. I want it to be diluted, but I still want it to be very strong. And I'm going to add some faux splatters. I'll do some real splatters as well. I'll show you both ways. But sometimes when I do just a regular splatter, it's a little too small, and I wanted some of the little splatters to be bigger. So I'm just going to fake it. I'm going to just pretend like it was a real splatter. And I love this effect. It looks like maybe you were drinking a cup of coffee and you spilled it all over the place, and now that is going to live forever on your page. I'm also going to take the lid of my instant coffee container, and I'm going to roll it around in that wet coffee mixture, and I'm going to make little coffee cup rings. Aren't they adorable? I think this is really fun, and again, it's an optional step. You don't have to do this. If you just follow the other 5 techniques, you'll get really great results, but this just takes it to the next level. Make sure that you stay with me till the end of the video, because I'm going to show you a flip through of all of the examples that we've done, as well as some that I did off camera. Another little trick here is, if you, especially if you're new at this, a great idea would be to pause the screen when I show you one of the examples, and then just use the techniques that I spoke about in the flip through and do the same thing and copy it step by step until you get your footing, and then put your own spin on it. Okay, here are the ones that I've made, and I'm just going to go through really quickly and tell you what I've done. So here I took the edge of the utility knife and kind of made these holes. It's also folded. This one is one of the ones that has the little kind of faux foxing using some paint. You can see it here and here as well. There's a little piece of tape, more of the foxing, and a little distressing on the edges. This little edge is torn off, and I think that it comes off really nice, and it does look and feel old. This one, we hand wrote a little note. We have some of the foxing. On this one, it's the same techniques as that one. I have a few more holes, which you can see back here. And if you've ever handled old papers, you know that this is kind of what they look like. They have some crinkle here, but they're not crinkled all the way. I think that that makes it look more authentic because we're not really like crumbling, we're just crinkling. With this one, I barely went over the edges, only at the top. And I think I have, on this one, I think I barely distressed the top of it. And like this side doesn't have any distressing on the side. I do have, this is like a natural fold here. And so I did fold the paper in quite a few places, including this natural fold. Another thing is, don't fold directly like vertical or horizontal. Give it a little bit of angle. It looks more realistic this way. And then I did ink this edge just a little more than what is original, and I added a little piece of the age tape, and I think this looks beautiful. So this is one that has kind of, at least these three have more minimal effects, and they still look really wonderful. Now these are ones that we made together, and this one is using 110-pound cardstock, so it's going to be thicker, and it's going to allow the water to sink in a little more and not damage the paper as much. So you can see here that I'm getting different layers, and this is the bleeding from the inkjet printer. I love these right here, these little splatters. I think it was these that I liked, or one of these, and so I added more at the end. This is our coffee. Look how good this looks. It does look like you just stuck a coffee cup on the edge of it and it left a ring. I also did fold this one. This one we did together, and we have a little more distressing at this one, meaning this one looks like it's been through a little more. This one looks like it's definitely been handled. It's been folded in multiple different areas. It has holes in it. It really looks like it's been worn and tattered, but in the best way. This one as well, we went a little overboard in this hole, and that's because this is regular copy paper. So when the water, if you let the water sit on too long, it's going to start damaging the fibers or going through the fibers. But I love this coffee, all these little splatters. They're so good. And I always love a tear, especially if you can make it asymmetrical or something that feels not so intentional. I cut off the edge right there, and I love that because I feel like that is something that happens. I think that's kind of what we're doing here, except we taped it back together. In this case, there's no tape, and it's just the torn edge. And on this paper, it actually has two colors already, so I went with it and I folded it there, and it was like the perfect progression for it. I think these two are my favorites, and Before we go any further, I would love to hear if you think you can tell which one is the copy paper and which one is the newsprint. So are we thinking we're going to call this one the dark blue and this one's the lighter blue because you can see the shade. Well, maybe I'm not sure if the camera is picking it up 100%, but this definitely printed a little bit lighter and this printed a little bit darker. Which one do you think is the newsprint? So on these, I absolutely love these. I love looking at the back of them because that really kind of, to me, shows the intention of the folds and of the crinkles and the tears. I also love these because we did distress the paper itself with the sanding tool, and when you feel it, you can feel the fibers that have been disrupted, and they're so lovely. I mean, it really feels like a real document. This one also had some extra, I used the distress ink on this one, which I did not on this one. And I just love all of the tears, the intentional, unintentional holes. These little bits and stuff are so wonderful. Well, I hope that you were inspired today to create your own aged paper. I know that for me, it's sometimes hard to use something that is an heirloom or that has been around for a long time. And this is a great way to still be able to use those projects, but this time we can scan them and print them, or we can buy digitals if you don't have access to old things, if you can't find them or they're too expensive at thrift stores or antique stores, then now you can print them yourself, and you can print them on regular copy paper or cardstock or even some newsprint and get really wonderful effects that look real and authentic and that are going to be a crown inside of your junk journal. I thank you so much for being here, for all of your love, and your support means the absolute world to me. I can't even put it in words. Honestly, I am blown away by your support and love, and I just thank you. I do. Also, just in case no one has told you today, which I don't know why, because you should have already been told, but you are beautiful. You're important. You matter. Your thoughts and your ideas, they're important and they deserve to be heard. You are a beautiful soul that spreads kindness and that sees the joy in the world around us, the world that God has given to us, that He has blessed us with. And you are loved unconditionally. I thank you. Until next time, love you. Bye.